I was actually already running quite a successful PR agency when I decided to start a second business. So suddenly it turned into, oh yeah, I want my own brewery. The start of the pandemic was that leap moment for me. I felt like I was at the top of a slide really, and I had no other choice but to go down. I just don't want a life that I'm unfulfilled with. So I do always strive to go for more.
Hello and welcome back to the She Who Dares Wins podcast. My guest this week is Verity. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So Verity, She Who Dares Wins. Can you tell me about when you've dared and won?
Oh, well, I've been thinking about this really carefully, and I think some business owners might talk about the start of their journey and taking the leap as that moment. But for me, I think I was actually already running quite a successful PR agency when I decided to start a second business. So for me, that's the kind of major moment. I felt like I was at the top of a slide really, and I had no other choice but to go down. My husband started a brewery here in Sunnybank Mills in Leeds, and the pandemic actually hit 2 months after we'd signed for the lease of the building, and we kind of had no choice but to launch. So that's the kind of moment for me, going from one business to two at the very start of the pandemic. I also had an 18-month-old son at the time.
Oh, wow.
I know, and he had chronic tonsillitis, so he actually had tonsillitis 13 times in 12 months. Oh. So I just remember sort of every 2 weeks or so, just knowing that he's going to get ill, and having sleepless nights and having him on my lap whilst I was doing all my work. So
Whoa.
Crazy times.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely the start of the pandemic was that leap moment for me. I could have just, knuckled down and just focused on survival, but I think it really gave me this momentum to build something that turns out is really special.
Yeah. I mean, the pandemic, I think, obviously it was a difficult time. But what's the mindset then when you're thinking about? So your husband was working already in the beer industry.
Yeah. Basically, we had a holiday, and I was talking about how happy I was working for myself, and he was, just feeling stuck and feeling like he wasn't making much impact, and he couldn't shake the idea that he wanted to start something. So we basically spent that whole holiday, me trying to persuade him to start something. So that was in the kind of October. He then left his job in the November, and we just decided, he didn't even have the business idea at that point, so we just decided to give him like 2 months to just have that headspace really. And yeah, it started as a beer bottle shop, and I kind of felt like that's fine, but that's not really, that's more of a lifestyle business. It's not really something that's going to be able to sustain us, so let's push that further, So he was like, well, I'd like a bottle shop where I'm selling beer that I help make. And then suddenly it turned into, oh yeah, I want my own brewery. So and we had our eye on this building here in Sunnybank Mills, and we always thought it would be incredible to brew beer here and have a bar. So it all kind of lined up together in those 2 months that he had off.
Yeah, that's a definite dare and win. Like, if anything,
yeah.
that is massive, because you've got your own thing going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I too had, so Teddy, my youngest, was born just as we were coming out of the pandemic, so I was pregnant the whole time. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think, I don't know about you, but you do some crazy shit when you're pregnant and when you just had a kid. And I think doesn't life kind of like align where you think, right, this is it now?
Yeah.
Do you think that probably spurred you on a little bit?
Absolutely. I think it was weird because when I first had Rowan, I felt like I was a superhero for like the first like 2-3 months, and I'd read in books that you were going to have a hormone crash and like everything's going to, you know, go south. But I really never had that. So I literally was like flying high for about 3 months, pure adrenaline and joy. And yeah, I think that feeling kind of, don't get me wrong, I then had 4 years of sleepless nights and yeah, definitely dropped. But I think that feeling of I can do anything has really stuck with me. And my mum and dad are natural entrepreneurs as well. So I do think I have something like inbuilt in me that I just don't want a life that I'm unfulfilled with. So I do always strive to go for more. Yeah. Even at the detriment to myself sometimes, I think.
I know the feeling. So Amity started your experience with beer. Are you like a massive beer fan?
It's interesting. So the reason I joined is because, you know, I would have quite happily run alongside Russ and just watched it happen. But I just felt like I wasn't communicated to as a woman from the breweries that were sort of existing at that time. Russ had worked for Brewdog and had quite infamously done that beer for girls in the pink labelling.
Oh, why is everything pink? So they did a pink beer?
They did, yeah, pink can.
Please tell me it at least tasted good.
Well, I wouldn't try it.
I wouldn't even mind that thing.
Yeah, I get the sentiment. I think they were trying to be clever, but it was just, it hit a bum note, I think. And just generally, just traipsing around breweries with Russ, I did feel there was an element that they weren't catered for women, and you either got looked at like you didn't belong there, or that you were just something to be stared at, and I just generally didn't feel very comfortable. So I just couldn't help myself in when he was setting up the brand and the communications. I couldn't help myself get involved and want it to be about inclusivity, about the community. We're in this local community here, so I didn't want to be just talking to those beer nerds who know what a dipper is, or you know, who want a new beer release every 2 weeks. I wanted people who just enjoyed being in a nice bar and nice surroundings with nice people. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I shoehorned my way in. And we decided I should be a director in the business. And because the pandemic hit when it hit and hospitality was literally on its knees, what we decided communications wise is, well, why don't we start talking to people now and letting people know what we want to do and what our vision is, and get them on the journey now. So we started social pages, and we quickly got a really good following. So we decided to actually bring our launch forward instead of waiting for things to open up. Sort of our idea was to brew somewhere off-site. We ended up brewing in Maidenhead, creating some cans and selling them online, so that people got to know Amity before stepping through the doors. And it worked really well. So we sold out in our first 24 hours. We took the money as a pre-order and then brewed the beer. So the pre-order money paid to create the beer. And then we hand-delivered out of our little Fiesta around like Farsley, Pudsey, Horsforth and surrounding areas. So yeah, by the time things did open up, we had a queue out the door, and people who already knew our beer and had tasted it and wanted to know more. So I'm really glad we did that. But for me, that was that leap moment. It was like, instead of waiting for things to get better, bring everything forward and
just get into it. Just start it.
Just start it, and warts and all. Yeah.
So the beer industry, I mean, the only thing I can relate to is I worked in a pub for 6-7 years, uni, and it was a local pub to home, and I begrudged like the local guys, men coming in. I'm not hating on men, but it's beer is traditionally known as men,
Yeah.
lads, beer.
Yeah.
But I do see the transition. I love watching like documentaries on YouTube, and I've seen a lot of, like you say, the American breweries,
Yeah.
and it's very much a role evolved around families. And what I was very intrigued with is how important the branding is, and how branding typically in the past has been focused on men, like you say, the pink beer. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
so is that, you coming from a marketing side,
Yeah.
was that really important to you? And how did you kind of like make sure, I mean, the space you've got is incredible. I've been over numerous times, and it is, you've ticked all the boxes. And the one thing for me is, I went up to the bar. I don't know. I think this might be a fear for most women when it comes to beer.
Right.
Is I've never drank it because
Okay.
it's the usual, like growing up, Stella, Carlsberg, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
blah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then when it comes to seeing all these new beers, I'm like, oh, they look like, the cans look amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I like. I don't, and you're afraid to ask.
Yeah.
But when I was at the bar at Amity, the lady behind the bar was like, what do you like? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, okay, what kind of flavors do you like? And it's an experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you have nailed that. And do you think that's going to help more people, not just women, but just anyone that's a bit like, oh, I'm not into beer in a conventional way?
I would hope so. I mean, we have a really good spirits, and we use John Roberts that's distilled here in Farsley, and we have a really good wine buyer who's also from Farsley, who sources their wine from around the world. So our ethos really is like good drinks generally.
Okay.
But yeah, from the beer point of view, it is what we're passionate about because we're making it, and it just isn't a one size fits all thing. I think that's the thing we'd like to communicate. It's not all beer tastes the same. There's just this massive spectrum now, and there's a whole subsection of beer that I can't tolerate. It's really sour. It's kind of makes me pull a certain face. I just can't, and I'm told like it's brewed by monks and it's got all this rich history. It's wonderful, and I'm tasting it and I go, oh, it tastes like feet. So, not everyone likes everything. What really turned me on to beer properly, I guess, was it was a stout that had peanut butter in. And I'm a red wine drinker naturally, so it's my natural domain. And it was just dark but sweet, and it's like this subsection of stouts called pastry stouts, so they're usually really high percentage. You sip them, you have them as a half or a schooner, 2/3, and you just savor it, and it's like a dessert beer. And that's what really made me go, oh, hello, yes. But, also I have these amazing memories of my 20s. I went to a lot of festivals. I did Glastonbury for about 7 years running. And, having a cold lager in a sunny field with your favourite music, or, just having a real ale in a country pub with the fire roaring. There's just things that just bring back memories for me as well. But, yeah, in terms of being gender, I just don't get the gender thing. I just don't understand why it's seen as a man's beer. If anything, beer was actually brewed by women in the kind of times when they were trying to make money for themselves. So they were kind of almost like witch creatures that were brewing a big bubbly pot, and they were doing it to make money. So I find it really funny that it's kind of been taken over by men and seen as a men's thing, because it wasn't always that way. So yeah, it's got a very rich history.
That's interesting. Is there still a stigma behind the pint?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've brought with me today a beer we brewed for International Women's Day.
Oh, wicked!
Yeah, so no one. This actually hasn't launched yet. It launches tonight.
Oh,
so
there we
it's
go.
literally fresh off the canning line.
Okay, cool.
And we've brewed it with Duration, which is a Norfolk-based brewery, who's women-led. And the glass I brought with it is our festival glass.
Yeah, I have one of these at home.
Do you?
Yes. We were like, are we allowed to take these? And we're like, yes, you pay for it. I was like, okay, we're not stealing.
So yeah, it's a stemmed glass. It's a half pint, although you can't tell because it's quite it's quite wide. But yeah, I did get a bit of pushback from a certain demographic of men who just felt feminine just by even drinking out of it, which I just find ridiculous, really. Very ridiculous. But yeah, we kind of recommend to people to try things as a 2/3. You know, a big pint of what's this? A 5.4% beer.
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot for people. So yeah, it's about savouring it, and the higher the percentage, the lower the serving size.
Which makes sense, right? Because I remember if I did ever have a pint, by the time I'm a lightweight.
Yeah.
By the time I got to the bottom, I was incredibly gassy.
Oh yeah.
And out of it, to
that's
be honest.
That's it.
So
some people really want a sessionable beer. They want to, get to the pub at 5 and leave at 11 and have downed like 9 pints in that time, and that's fine if you want to do that, but you're not exactly savouring it. You're just chucking it down your neck, aren't you?
There's no experience.
Yeah.
Well, should we crack this open then? And you can talk me through. Talk me through.
Well, I haven't tried it yet, so we'll have to. Yeah, I hope it's good. So I'm gonna hold this near the microphone.
For everyone listening, we've had a spill. For everyone listening, we are pre-12 o'clock, but it's 11 o'clock somewhere. That's what they say, right?
Well, yeah, there isn't a day go by that I walk into the brewery at like 10 o'clock and our brewer Tom just hands me something. Usually don't know what it is either.
Okay, so this talk me through this then. So it's dark.
Yeah, so it's a Dunkelweizen. It's German style beer. It's 5.4%.
Oh, it smells good.
And basically, the reason we brewed it is because Miranda at Duration wanted to do a wheat beer. And I, as I say, I'm a dark beer fan. And I love to see a dark beer on taps in spring, summer, because often it kind of switches over to more like lagers and sours for summer.
Okay.
And then if you are a dark beer fan, you might not get one on draft.
Right.
So I wanted to see my own sort of beer pouring through the sort of hotter months. So this should be. So first, take a big sniff. So you should get like cloves and banana coming through a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all good. And kind of a hint of coffee as well.
Yeah. Okay, so the swill. I've seen this with wine.
Yeah, so again, like I'm not qualified in beer tasting as yet. It is one of my goals.
Okay.
But yeah, basically you just get an air into it.
Okay.
And then by putting your hand over it and taking a big sniff, you're basically trapping that aroma.
Oh yeah, you get a deeper.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But you taste first with your nose, so you should always smell something before tasting. And then yeah, let's give it a sip. Oh. So for me, that's quite light. Like
that's not. Yeah, that doesn't have the what I would with dark that I've tried before. Like a real. That's a real. I don't know how to explain it. It's a real nice.
If you close your eyes, that you wouldn't necessarily think that was a dark beer, but it does have that kind of deep kind of.
But it's so smooth.
Yeah, I really like. I'm getting a lot of coffee. Maybe it's because it's still morning time.
That's really nice.
Yeah. So we called this beer Invisible.
Okay.
So we did both when Miranda and I hadn't met before. So we came up for the collab. So she drove up from Norfolk and she got right involved in like the brewing process. She was digging out the mash tun, which basically means the kind of spent malts and grains you kind of have to put into a big barrel. Getting involved, and we ended up having a discussion about how women are perceived in the brewery industry. It is one of those things that comes up all the time, and she kind of felt, and I really reflected what she was saying, that she doesn't want to come off as like fighting everyone and aggressive and just constantly trying to change people's perceptions. She is open to having a discussion with people, but like also it's not her job to change people's minds
Yeah.
either. Like, so we really like the fact, at first we were going to call the beer invisible, as in women are invisible, but we actually thought that was quite a negative
Yeah.
connotation. Like, we're bloody not,
Yeah.
you know. So it was about being invisible, so, you know, more visible than invisible. So we just felt like talking about a woman's role in the beer industry in more of a positive way than a negative.
Yeah.
And flipping it. So
Yeah, I like
and we
that.
both come from that perspective.
Yeah, this used to be called, my whole kind of like pre-branding was, this is a man's world.
Oh, really? Right.
And I had the same thing. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
do you know what? Like, let's just, and you can sometimes get pulled down with, I guess, the issues and the problems. And it's just like, okay, let's just move forward. Where are we going to
Yeah.
go with this? Shu Des
Yeah.
wins positive. So duration.
Yeah.
So is that her brewing?
Yeah, so that's her brewery. Okay. She and her husband Bates, they're you know, again very similar to Amity in that they're a married team. He does the brewing, and it appears she, you know, literally takes charge of you know, the direction of where everything's going and the business side. But I was really inspired by her. She had worked a lot with an Indian charity. I want to make sure I get the I pronounce it right, but it's Shunhela, and basically she had worked directly with them, but they help women who are getting out of violent situations in India. So this beer is raising money. There's a QR code on the back, but also 10p of the profits go towards the charity as well.
Awesome. That is incredible. So collabs then, the beer world is not this is my beer, this is my secret.
Do you know, I think that's why I've really fallen in love with craft beer. The community is so bloody incredible. And it's interesting because I come from a PR and marketing world where not so much now. I do think it's getting a lot better, but there used to be a time when everybody was really snippy and you know, in competition with each other, and I didn't really feel like I had peers, whereas the craft beer industry is insane. So we have breweries lend us equipment for free. They share everything they know all the time about anything. My husband is very good at putting the right people in the right place. So he, you know, draws on this community that he has to support him. And I've kind of found a sub-community within the craft beer of women-led breweries, but also, you know, women in different roles. And I found that really a source of strength, really, to draw upon. So, yeah, I'm really, really grateful for that. And, you know, it's kind of this ethos that everyone drinks beer. No one's going to drink one brand. Why not join together?
There's space for everyone.
But I've literally never known anything so friendly and wonderful, which is interesting because going back to being in a man's world and the sexism side, I did a real ale festival in a town in Yorkshire. I'm not going to name the town, but I found it like, I felt like I'd gone 30 years into the past. Like, unbelievable. Like, there were men my age that I was speaking to that were like time traveled from the 70s. They were so sexist. And they were talking about women with low cut tops serving more beer, and how women had come into the festival and didn't know what to do because they don't know how to drink beer. And it was just, I was just absolutely shocked.
Wow.
And I think the more traditional beer has attracted those traditional attitudes, or maybe it's location based, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I do think there's subsections of the beer community that are mind-boggling really in their perceptions, whereas craft does feel a little bit more open-minded.
I was going to say, so do you see more, your place is great for families, for anyone. Are you seeing more of the younger generation of girls drinking beer?
definitely. And being really knowledgeable about it as well.
That's
Like
cool.
they know what they like, they know what to ask for. They're really like enthusiastic about it, without going so far that it's like switching people off. I think it's quite nice seeing sort of younger women come through. And likewise, we launched an alcohol-free beer this December, thinking it'd be take us through dry January, and it ended up selling out like mid-January because it went down so well. And yeah, there was a lot of women there who, you know, not particularly alcohol-free lifestyle, but just want the choice.
Yeah.
And really appreciated seeing it in draft and not can. And yeah, really complimentary about how nice it was. So that was really good.
It is
Really,
a bit of a shift, isn't it? I think we're becoming more aware of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And having the option, like you say, there's been a few nights where I've been out with friends. My friends will be like, yeah, she's not. I'm not like. And I've had a few non-alcoholic beers because they taste the same, and you're not getting up the next day with that insane headache or just feeling a bit crap. You're actually drinking it because you like the taste of it, and not because where that's going to take you in terms of being absolutely slozzled.
Yeah. Well, there's a brewery called Mash Gang who changed my perception on alcohol-free beer. I wish they were around when I was pregnant, but they basically do the big, bold stouts. So if I wanted my peanut butter stout, I'd go to them. So they do the kind of wilder flavours. So if you want a sour, or, you know, if you want something beyond like a nice lager or a pale, go to Mash Gang. They're really, really good for alcohol-free. Yeah. The only downside is you're probably paying, you're not saving on the fact that there's not alcohol-free in there. There's not alcohol in there. So they're not like a cheap option.
Yeah.
But then again, why would you, it's made the same just because there's no alcohol in it. Why should it
be any
cheaper,
less?
I guess?
Yeah. No, that's totally.
Because they're bursting with flavour and really, really good.
Yeah. So when I was kind of searching for the world of women in beer, it was quite hard. Like, a friend of mine, he's massively into his craft beers, and he gave me a few names of people. And I've been looking online, and there have been in the past, I think, a few purely female craft brewers.
Yeah.
And I don't know if some of them still do exist or don't exist, but what's the entry into the industry? Is it starting with a brew kit at home? Like, what do you think we have to kind of change to? Does it start with tasting beer and falling in love with beer and then brewing, or is it something that someone could think, do you know what, I'd quite like to work and see how things are made?
Yeah, that's. I think it's much like sort of any engineering or sort of production role. I think it starts in schools. You don't really want kids trying beer and falling in love with beer.
It's true, yeah.
So it'll have to start earlier.
A little bit later on.
But yeah, like, when I was at school and I got careers advice, I was told you can be an accountant or a teacher or a dentist. And like, they're the three options. And I was like, or a PA. PA, of course. And I knew I wanted to work in computers.
Right.
Because at the time, like, there wasn't even an IT GCSE. This is showing my age now, but I really was interested in computers. I knew I wanted to do something in that, and I knew I wanted to do advertising. So it kind of, I did see the skills rather than the job role in my head, like thinking about like you could be in food production or you could be in brewing was never really, given to you as a path. I think there's a science element to it. It basically is just like one big science experiment.
Well, you
essentially.
You said engineering.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
You're right. It's components putting in and getting it just right.
Yeah, and working with the machinery as well. I mean, there's like high-tech kit where you literally press a button and you've brewed a beer,
right.
Which we don't want at the moment. Like, for us, we like the manual element of it, but Tom, our brewer, is always like climbing up on the tanks and fixing pipes and just making sure that's all smooth. And we also had a problem over the summer 2 years ago where we had a bit of a heat wave and the water levels were really low. We had not much rainfall. And Yorkshire Water, or a water company, I don't want to call,
We'll beep that out.
call them out. But yeah, they were treating the water because I think they were turning around, the water treatment because there was less rainfall. So the chemicals in whatever the water company was doing was affecting our beer. So we brewed it the same all the time, but suddenly there was like this off flavour.
Oh.
And it was like 3 months of hell for poor Tom. He had to basically consider absolutely, if nothing's changed from our side, what could it be?
Right.
And yeah, I think he lost sleep. Bless him. But yeah, we got to the bottom of it in the end. But yeah, it's just constantly
evolving,
problem solving.
Yeah.
So also, my husband likes to say like 90% of brewing is cleaning as well. Keeping a really clean, organised brewery is pretty essential. And yeah, we've got an assistant brewer called Dave who just passionate about beer. He's lived a real life. He's done all sorts of job roles. And he's just come in. He's just one of those guys who just is a doer. So he came in as almost like an assistant trainee, but he's already on the path to being a brewer himself. So, and he's like military clean and organised. So he just keeps the brewery shipshape. So that's a really good skill set as well.
So there's more than just that. There's a lot to it to consider.
And I think there's some brewers who are really creative and are kind of like, it's ready when it's ready. Don't really think about the commercial side. I'm just brewing this beer. It could be ready in 3 months. It could be ready in 6 months. I don't know. So they're like the creative chefs almost. And then you have people who are just like, the scientists. So it can be very varied.
And then, like you say, the business side of things is, I'm guessing it's not the easiest. I feel like I hear from a lot of people in restaurants and bars that it is a difficult industry to be in.
Yeah, I mean, we're recording today on the budget day, and all eyes are on whether we're going to get support of some sort. There's a kind of call out for potentially lowering the VAT for hospitality only, so it gets people spending again.
Yeah.
But who knows? I don't think it'll happen. We're kind of screwed. I mean, honestly, I know there's a lot of industries that are like poor me, but there was the pandemic first. Hospitality was last to be supported, last to open up properly. Even then, you had to be socially distanced, so you could only take half the customers you would have. And then the cost crisis just absolutely screwed things. So in brewing in particular, there was a CO2 shortage. Then there was a keg, like an aluminium steel shortage. So you couldn't get kegs. So really simply, you could make the beer, but you couldn't transport it anywhere. And then the cost of like everything has just gone
through the roof.
Yeah, we the first year we didn't raise our prices. We really held on. And then we saw like how mad it got. Like we did a cost comparison of like your kind of big beer and what they were selling for, and £6-7 a pint. So we were like, hang on, we are lovingly making this ourselves, and it is costing X, so we are going to have to put our prices up. But at the same time, we've really purposely brewed beers that are like lower cost to try and counter it. But it's tough. There's also there's a tax level now on beers. So if they go over a certain percentage, the brewery get taxed a lot more. So you're going to start seeing a lot less high percentage beers on the market generally. They're all going to be pretty lower ABV generally.
Okay.
So you're gonna sort of see a trend there coming.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a shame for me because I need my like 10% like peanut butter stout. Gutted.
Oh, 10%. I think that would see me in A&E.
Night night, everyone. Yeah, I'm off.
That is so incredible. And where do you want to take things with like Amity? What changes would you like to be seen in the industry? Where do you want to have an impact?
Yeah. It's interesting. We've kind of gone full circle in about 12 months. We were thinking and exploring replicating Amity as a brew pub, but 4 times the size somewhere else.
Right.
We wanted a lovely mill building, and although there's plenty in Yorkshire, to get that kind of perfect concoction of a local community, walkable, good transport links, good ethos, was harder than you might think. But we had shortlisted 2 or 3 places. But we started looking at the money, and we got very scared. And then we started looking at what it meant for the quality of life for us and our staff, going between 2 places. And that scared the shit out of us. And then suddenly there's a brewery closing every week, from December right through till, there was some bad news like last week, of, big VC companies swooping in and taking over smaller breweries. So, we're nervous, I have to say. And I think there's a smarter way of doing it as well. Like, we don't have to go bigger and replicate just because it's a success here. I think we're onto something very magic here. So we've kind of flipped it, and we're thinking about, I can't tell you all the plans.
Yeah, don't give us all.
But there's a way of, we have to brew more beer because we run out or we turn people away all the time. So we have to brew.
Is that on, so obviously you've got your sales through the bar over there.
Yeah, about 85% through the bar, yeah.
And then you distribute locally, I take it?
Yeah, so we've got an online website which ships nationally. Then we have about 5% of our beer is dedicated to trade. So we currently stock Flatiron, the steakhouse in Leeds, Starling Beer Cafe in Harrogate, and lots of other bottle shops and independents.
Okay.
Predominantly in the Leeds area, but we've got some in Manchester, Sheffield, Huddersfield, Halifax, Harrogate. So we're broadening, but there's a big opportunity in export. There's like the Scandi countries bloody love UK. Craft beer, I love it. The Japanese market, crazy for craft beer, and to a point America as well, although a bit difficult to break because they're very regional,
right?
And there's so many breweries there. So, but it's
open
potential,
too. Yeah. I actually had some beer in Japan once, Sapporo beer, which I think was and then I found it in the UK, and I was so excited. It was in this aluminium tin. I think actually,
lovely, yeah.
My mother-in-law worked for a company that was importing it. And she was like, have you? And I was like, oh my God, that is... Because it takes, I think with beer and wine and food, it takes you to an experience, whether it's a festival or...
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so lovely about Amity, is that it's the experience of not just the beer that you do, it's the community that you've got, the space is so important. When you go there, it feels warm, it's inviting. We had my husband's 40th there, and we had it in the tap room where you brew in, and there's something about that that is very nostalgic for people. So I imagine from a business perspective, like you say, the potential to grow is huge.
Yeah.
But it's actually then, is that taken away from what it is that you have, or could you recreate that?
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it?
Very, very, very conscious of it, and I think that's why we're being very considered. And doing what we feel is right. I think a lot of people, when you're a business, they do think you're faceless. I mean, I had a guy who claims he's a loyal customer to Amity and supports us, but he really had a problem that we were selling tickets for our Amity festival that happens every year in the car park, and he's just like, I just can't justify giving you 15 quid, to enter a beer festival. I was trying to explain to him like the overheads. I mean, behind the scenes, this event costs 30 grand. It's like a wedding, and we don't break even on it. And literally, it nearly breaks me every year. Like every year, I think I don't want to do this again. It is so much work,
Right.
and literally it isn't for any financial gain. It's just for the love of it. And yet we have customers going, ugh, you're all about the profit. How dare you charge £15? And I find it really difficult to communicate the blood, sweat, tears that goes in.
Yeah.
The thought, the agonizing, the little details, like everything. And yeah, that can be quite heartbreaking. And I had this bit of discussion with him over Facebook on a Saturday when I had my son and he was playing mini golf and I was distracted by this guy who was trying to pull me down. And he ended it by saying, you guys are all about profit. It's kind of, I know you have to make money, but it's disgusting. And I just thought, like, there are people I just can't convince.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to have to leave it. But it is proper heartbreaking that people think that, like, genuinely. We are people at the end of the day. And, you know, there's 3 directors. We've got 10 staff, including the bar team. And everybody just thinks about Amity all the time and has dedicated their life to it. And I just, I hope that comes across in a positive way.
Yeah, it has to me, like the passion there, is incredible. Like I say, my first experience of, you know, what do I get, was great, because I think sometimes in a bar environment you can feel a little bit stressed when you get, I'm one of these people that don't think about what I want to order before I get there, but I'm also open to drinking lots of different things.
Oh, I'm like that,
yeah. So I'm like, oh, and your guys give the time to customers, which I think is really important. So on that, if there's kind of women out there, or anyone really, that wants to try beer, is not a big beer drinker, this is amazing, actually. I'm just
oh, good. Yeah, I might have a top up.
Yeah. What, if they're entering, let's say they're not entering Amity, but they're entering somewhere else that sells craft beer.
Yeah.
Like, should they come with questions? Like, how would you say this is how you should kind of get into beer?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, always ask for a taster. Like, everywhere will give you a taster of something. And even if you just line up 3 and you feel a bit like, oh, this is embarrassing, there's a queue behind me, I would always do that.
Okay.
And I think your bar server would prefer you to do that. And to also know, if you don't like the beer, you can send it back. Like, if somebody took a sip and just went, like, I really can't stomach that, like, we would replace it, like, with something else. Like, you know, it's not your fault you don't like it. I'm not saying everyone's going to do that, but, you know, I just think that's good customer service. So that's the first thing, like, take your time. I'm going to relate to how I got into gin, actually, because that was a bit eye-opening for me. I went to the Spirit of Harrogate, who does Slingsby rhubarb gin.
Okay.
They have a gin experience where they basically get all the raw ingredients out for you, so you smell them and you kind of figure out what you like and what you don't. And I kind of realised all these years that I've said no to gin is because I don't like floral notes, and I don't like juniper berries. Whereas give me a spice gin and oh my God, I'm like all over it. So I've now like found my home in gin. So yeah, maybe it's about going on a brewery tour, smelling the hops, smelling the malts, tasting the different profiles and figuring out what you like. There's a really good book out there. I think it's called Tasting Beer, but it has like a flavour wheel on it, so you can see. I might have the book wrong there, but yeah, there's definitely a flavour wheel that you can look at where you can understand your taste profile and what you like. Is it bitter? Is it sweet? Is it sour? And kind of go from there. But yeah, I would always ask questions, and I would always ask to try and figure it out.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, it's an experience. Look at it as an experience rather than, I think we get into our comfort zones. I was the same with gin, and then I didn't really like gin, but I drank it. And then I had damson gin. And now, I mean, I could just like throw that back neat. And before,
sipping gin.
Before, I was like, no, I don't really like gin. And a weird one, I don't know whether this is a later in life discovery, or my roots, because I'm from an Irish family. but Guinness.
Oh yeah.
Like I love a cold Guinness.
Yeah. One that tastes like soil.
Yeah,
Like I don't know what it is. I want the mud.
Yeah. And so I think it's important that tastes change,
Yeah.
and what you enjoyed in your 20s
Yes, yeah.
is not necessarily what you're going to enjoy in your 30s, 40s, 50s. And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if that was the case, I'd still be drinking VK Blue.
WKD. I was just going to say WKD. Yeah. I remember my first experience with Reef was not good. It's basically heartburn in a bottle, isn't it? It's awful.
Yeah. Liquid laxative, I think.
Yeah, the 90s had a lot to
Do you know it's all coming back?
Is
I read the press as a PR on my PR side, and it's all making a comeback. VK, WKD,
No.
huge. Yeah, it's all coming back.
Surely not with all the E numbers and crap that goes in them.
I mean, I think there's like worthy, like clean versions, and then there's like the dirty shit.
Oh,
Well,
God.
what they can get away with anyway. Cause it'll never be as bad as it was for us.
No.
Because they're just.
I remember
you'll kill someone.
Weatherspoons, used to do like a picture, and it had like 4 WKD in it, a Reef, something else, and you just like put your straw in with everyone else, pre-COVID obviously, and it was just like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Like I don't. Whereas I think actually these days now, when I talk to students, they're like, oh no, we'd like. I mean, I never drank coffee at uni. I was like, what is that? That's very European.
Yeah.
And it's changing now. You're actually finding that students will go out for a few beers and go home, or drink and then go home. And there's not this massive drink till you fall
over. Yeah. I think social media's got a lot to answer for there, because not that it was a good way in the 90s, but I think there's more like there's accountability. If you're going to be like laid on the floor, covered in your own vomit, then there's likely to be a digital footprint of that. So I think people are a bit more conscious.
Yeah.
But also I think they've seen the after effects of an older generation who struggled with alcohol dependency socially, and thinks, well, why the heck am I doing that? I don't have the money to do it. My health's more important to me. And I totally get it. Like, socially, alcohol is ingrained in me, but like, I don't feel like an outcast if I wasn't drinking at the same time.
I think it's been a good thing. I think people are, like you say, more aware of health now, more aware of dependency.
Yeah.
Being in the construction industry, alcohol was a big issue.
I can imagine, yeah.
And opened my eyes up to the kind of danger side of it. And I think drinking responsibly. And do you know what? I think I've been to a couple of events and venues where the owners have stepped in and said, I can't serve you anymore. And I feel like that now, the responsibility. Previously, back when I was drinking in uni and stuff, I never saw that. Like, there was a danger, and I think now people are more aware of it, and they're like, okay, that's enough, and let's just all be a little bit considerate. And I think only good things have kind of come out of that.
Although I do have an example where that went the other way.
Oh, right.
I didn't get into Belgrave, which is the bar in Leeds. They had bouncers on the door at like 7:00, and they basically casually asked me where I'd been, and I'd been to one bar before, and I couldn't pronounce it, and he thought I was drunk, so he wouldn't let me in.
I know, I'm just really bad at pronouncing stuff.
it's like Shisherners. And so I was just like, oh, has this gone the other way? That like you have to be sober to get into a bar.
Oh, I see what you mean.
To keep it nice. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like maybe I should go home at 7:00 after a shandy. But that felt a bit judgmental.
Right.
But it's one of those things, isn't it? If you're trying to keep a certain vibe in a bar, then I get it.
Yeah. The vibe.
It's gone a bit mad.
Let's find a happy balance. Drink responsibly, but have a good time. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, exactly. And for us, we have had occasions. I would never talk about what our guests get up to, because it is completely up to them. But we have had occasions where the worst people has got drunk in our bar is just because they didn't understand the strength of the beer that they were drinking. Yeah. So we just make sure that if somebody really likes a stout but doesn't realise it's like 8%, then we'll just You know, we'll just give them a warning when we're serving them that it is pretty strong, and just take it easy. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think we've got just such a lovely customer base that everyone just comes to enjoy. And, and they're all they're all home by 10. Like, it genuinely, like, come 9 o'clock, you see the sales dropping, and you're just like, we are a true suburban bar, like a millennial suburban bar. Everyone wants to be in bed, watching a box set.
Get your jammies on. Oh, I love that. Well, listen, I think you're doing incredible things. Your story's incredible. You've opened my eyes to the world of beer and taste buds. This is absolutely insane. I love everything you're doing about, you know, trying to make it as inclusive as possible. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, I've loved it.
And I've got a little gift for you.
Oh, yeah.
But I also want everyone. So this beer, where can they get this?
So it's launching on International Women's Day itself, so 7th of March. It should, because it's a special, when it's gone, it's gone. So it should be around, I reckon, till probably May, June time. So still, hopefully, by the time this comes out. Well, I'll push this podcast anyway a bit further up the line, so we can help with that. And it's Amity Brew and Duration. And it's called Invisible.
Awesome.
And you can get it on our website, which is amitybrew.co.
Amazing. Right, well, here's your hoodie.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Oh my God, so special.
Keep doing what you're doing. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.